Hey guys, another episode of Apex World for Dummies. And today I have Dietmar Aust, with a new tool. It's called Opal Tools, I guess. It's a
Yes.
tool set or something, and I know that it's for deployment or exporting. I'm not looking at the products before I make the show because I want to have this genuine impression like every other beginners has in the so that I get the same question, right? If I know everything, so I'm asking the questions for everybody else and for citizen developer managers, and this is the level you can expect. We don't get too much into technical details, just to get you an impression what we have, if it's relevant for you or not. I just saw it lately on Twitter, and I asked you and said, "Hey, I didn't know that this is a thing. I mean, I know that you are playing around with stuff like that for many years, right? This is your
Yes.
this is your hobby and your passion, and for whatever reason, which I which I
Well,
cannot
actually,
understand.
it solves real world
I know,
problems
I
and
know, I
stuff,
know, but I
right?
mean, it's
I
really.
just like it. What
But
can I do?
yeah, that's the problem. This
Sue
is the
me!
problem I have. You like it, but what?
Sue
The
me! Yeah.
people people like that? Okay, there's something wrong. And yeah, so and now the weird thing, I didn't we didn't have you on the podcast yet, right? I
No.
asked you, and you were not that happy. And the same for Dennis. Dennis said, "Well, I know I don't like to be on a podcast." But Dennis, I have on a maybe right now. He said,
Okay.
"Oh, okay." So just, I mean, you are Apex community member from day one, right? You are one of you know, the people from the beginning, one of the dinosaurs and source, and you have been some ace thing, right?
Yeah.
And you gave it back. You quit.
Yeah. Yeah, that was mainly for the reason once Oracle really started to see us as a marketing extension
Yes,
and to
thank
give
you.
us more points for cloud related topics and whatever. But I really want to be independent. And I want to, I mean, we all have a love-hate relationship with Oracle, right? We love it, and there are
Yes.
certain things that just don't work as advertised. But it's even more the responsibility of the people in the community to tell the other guys how to make it work nevertheless. But then you touch issues that might not be favorable, whatever. But in the end, every company with all of their products have issues. It's just a matter of, can you make it work, and is it overall worth it? And I
Yeah.
think Oracle has strong products. It's fun to use them, but I don't want to be pushed into having a certain stance or opinion about things. So I, yeah, then I quit, and it saves me so much time, um, because you had to get those points, and then you always had to produce content. But
Yes. Yeah.
sometimes you have family issues, whatever, and you're,
It's not
you,
a, not
I
a,
mean,
it doesn't have to be an
I,
issue, right? Family doesn't have to be
yeah,
an issue. It's just you have a family,
yes,
you have a private
yeah.
life.
And sometimes I want to put out stuff when it's ready. This is
Yeah.
what I love about the open source community, right? So you don't release when the deadline comes, you release when it's done, right? And so this is also something that I enjoyed with the Opal tools. We saw, I finally took the time to um, build out those tools to ease our deployment process, and I really took the time to round the edges and really make it work for us. So, I mean, if you like, we can jump right into the topic, and then
Yeah.
I
Yeah. Sure.
can
Sure. Let
start.
let
And
let's see what we have.
yes,
I'm really curious, right?
yeah, you should be. Okay, so I'll just briefly go through the stuff about me. So after university, I started as consultant at Oracle, building core web applications in 1997. I became a freelance consultant. +1.
Yeah, same thing. Did the same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then I did the stuff on my own, became a freelance consultant, and nowadays I look more into collaborating with other teams and managing their work. And also, yeah, database developer of the year, co-authored some books, was an Oracle Ace from 2012 to 19. Regular presenter at the major Oracle conferences. So I did a lot of PL/SQL development, and just to understand also the scope of the tool, we focused on the typical size of team that I worked with throughout the years. There was 1 to 5 developers actually sharing the same code, right? So, so I built it basically to scratch my own itch. And I wanted to be able to establish certain standards across teams and clients. And it should be like a really easy quick start. I download it and I have a setup routine and I'm good to go in like 5 minutes, right? I want to be the tool to be used that easy. And it should have a flat learning curve. If you use so yeah, I really like that. I learned in a course how to write standard operating procedures for people, how they should do their job. And they always said, a person of average intelligence can do it correctly 100% of the time, even on a bad day.
So it's also for me.
Yes, and for me.
I'm your target audience.
Yeah. So I really like that, and I don't want to think so much about, oh, have I thought about everything? Did I do this and that? And it could be like fully automated, but also having a good checklist goes a long way. So I acknowledge that different people work in different ways. So this tool had to be able to adapt to the different workflows and also development styles. So you could.
What is the problem? What problem do you try to solve?
That'll come a little bit later. But so let me just go through this slide, and then I'll tell you. So people really work differently. You could have sandboxing that comes with an overhead where each developer has their own development instance, or you're using the shared development database stuff. You could be
this is what the development team is doing right now, right? The sandboxing. Joel told us on the last podcast that they are.
Oh yeah, they're moving to sandboxing.
Yeah, they now everybody has its own Apex 21.1 version, and they're working on different paths, and then they migrate everything together, and so and it's easier to, I don't know, to decide very last minute what feature comes into 2021. So this is what they do now.
Yeah,
recently they started doing that.
It does make sense. It's good that they do it, because then they will support that style of working. So that was one of the major critiques about Apex. If you have this metadata-driven repository, that you cannot easily merge parts of the application, right? So I think it's a good thing that they do it, so that they will implement it in a way that we can use it as well. Although I don't know. I remember talking to Patrick Wolf, where when they actually build changes to the Apex applications, they do just SQL inserts, or it could be when they write the patches. So, but it would be good to support like good merging of Apex applications. Okay, and when you work on the packages and tables and views and whatnot, you should be working from the file system, and ideally use that file and compile it against the database. But some people work in the database.
What's the reason for that? Why would you want to do that? Why don't you like I do, go in a package, make the changes, comply, done. In SQL Developer, why should I do that?
Well, it's, I mean, I don't want to get in your way. That doesn't end well.
Come on, man. We're friends.
So
You don't have to be afraid.
I've built it in such a way that both is possible, right? Because people have their reasons why they do it one way or the other one. I'm not ideological about it. There are certain reasons why you would do either one, and that's your choice, right? So I want to pick you up where you are. I don't want to force a certain approach on you, because then you might say, well, if I have to do this and that, but now I work differently, I don't want that. You throw everything out of the window and you're left with nothing, right? So I never really got the point to try to force a certain approach, as good as it might be, onto other people, and then they throw out everything and have nothing. So I want to help as many developers at a medium or lower level to get a little bit better, than trying to focus on the high end. You just have not so much impact then, right?
Right.
And so some people use continuous deployment and integration, or some people just don't, right? So if you're using some tools like Liquibase or Flyway, where you can fully automate all that stuff, you need a lot of infrastructure and advanced skills. And you need to set up all those tools. You have to buy new servers, whatever. So that's a lot of stuff to build up before you can really benefit from it.
And it doesn't sound that this is something for an Apex developer, right? Who just can create a workspace within 5 minutes and start creating applications, and this is it, right? And this is not our audience, right? This is maybe
well, as I said before, I don't judge people for requiring a certain approach. Sometimes it's like company policy, where everything has to be run through a continuous integration setup, whether it's Apex or Java or whatever applications, they just have to do it, right? So you have different kinds of Apex developers, citizen developers, but also like up until the high end folks, right? It's just that you need a lot of infrastructure if you want to implement that. So what we are focusing on was more for the average developer that either has no approach or is unhappy with the existing one, right? And this is semi-automatic, well-structured, but it can even be like fully automated. And I will do this through the GitHub project. So I'd be happy to work with people who want to go all the way, but I only do it if there's a real need for that, right? Then I can add features to support that. But right now, it's not the primary use case. So the minimum requirement for me from a skill level is that people understand that they have to deploy changes through SQL files, right? So if you don't want to end in total chaos, you need to have somewhat a structured approach, and you need files where you have an alter table add column script in there. That you run to deploy on the different environments. So that is basically the minimum requirement. If you don't want to do that, the tool is not for you.
Okay.
But if you want to be somewhat professional and keep an eye on the source code and deployments and everything, you need to do that anyhow. So I've written that software to support like the deployment of PL SQL, Apex, ORDS, and also the extraction of sources in Java. It works on the different operating systems, and it leverages DBMS metadata for exporting, and also the SQL CL for exporting and deployment. And I directly embedded the SQL libraries. So whenever you download it and try to use it, you don't need to configure, let's say, the Apex export utility or SQL. You don't need to download or install anything. It's all embedded and you can use it directly. Yeah, so that is in the beginning. So everybody has written a script like that to create a patch, right? So you have a number of packages, and you need to compile the specification and the body, and you install tables and whatnot. But in essence, you really have to make sure that you have, let's say, certain sections. So after a few years, we got better that we said, okay, we first need to install the tables before we can install the foreign key constraints. Then the views, procedures, functions, then the package headers before you install the package bodies. So we have gained a certain understanding what is a good order in which to run the different and install the different objects.
Agree.
So when the deployment tool that we have basically runs SQL scripts in directories, and the order is determined by the file system ordering, right? And so we have then said, okay, if we want to deploy these different object types, we put them into certain directories so that they will be run in the correct order, right?
You mean in certain directories or in one directory with this, like you have the example on the right-hand side? So I'm responsible for having the right sequence, and you read this one directory and...
I mean, I will recursively go through the file system and all of its directories and subdirectories, and I will list them in the order in which the SQL scripts will be executed. And then you can see what will happen and adapt. We will see it later in the demo. So basically that solution automatically runs SQL scripts in the desired order, which you can influence by naming the directories. And we pretty much don't have to code our deployment script. We just configure it. You have automatic logs in the file system and the database, and you don't need separate tools because everything is already embedded.
Who is this guy on the right?
That's me in happy mode.
Oh, okay.
Relaxed.
20 years.
20 years ago, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
When you had the first idea about that.
Yeah. I want my life in easy. Yeah, so that's the GitHub page, and typically.
So the whole thing is open source, or what?
Yes.
So it's not a product. You don't earn money with that.
No, I don't sell it. So you go to releases and download the binaries there. If you do just a clone of the Git project, you will also have to build it and download the SQL libraries yourself. You can do that, but I would recommend going to the releases right away. Okay, so then I would say we will head. Missed. Whatever. So basically, you can think of it that you have like two user roles in the whole thing. One is setting everything up for the average developer. And then once it's set up, it's really easy to use. So we're going to start with that. That you have, let's say, a project. And we can put this stuff into all different directories that it fits nicely into your project structure. Here it's just for demo purposes. So what we see here is, let's say we have a directory for your SQL sources, right? And it's organized by.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm missing the link. So
Okay.
you download a Java application from GitHub. Is this what you do?
Actually, I would like to do it the other way around. So yes, to answer your question, you basically you download a zip file, right?
Okay, you download a zip file from GitHub. And what do I get with that? And what do I do with that?
I'll skip that part. So and then you run the setup routine. Right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I'll skip that for now. It'll be, we'll do that afterwards, right?
Okay, and then the Java program is installed. Then you can, right?
Right, and then batch files are also generated.
Mm-hmm. Good enough for me right now. It's also running on Macs. Is this also a Mac?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, also on Linux. Mm-hmm. So we'll come back to that in a minute. So
and now we are back on our
downloads on a specific project.
What you show right now is the directory you already have for your project. It has nothing to do with your product right now, right? What you show us right now is this is an arbitrary directory where you probably store your SQL files for deployment anyway.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the structure of this directory doesn't have to be in the way you say it has to be, but I'm totally free to structure this directory for my project.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good to know.
You will, you will see it in a few minutes.
Wait a minute, get something. Get a post. Okay, guys, I'm back from the delivery. Okay, so we are now in an arbitrary directory of your project where you put all your deployment files, SQL files, and now you're back.
Right. So So I want to first show the workflow of the regular developer once everything is set up, right? So in this case, we are working with two different schemas, that is schema 1 and schema 2, and we have 3 environments: development, test, and production, right? And so we can, and those batch files are pre-generated, that I can say, I want to export schema 1. And it will then start the exporter and automatically export all the objects in the schema. You have first some information about how it connects and which objects it should export, which objects it should exclude, types, whatever that you can all configure at the setup. And so I also like to see the full query on the user objects so you understand exactly what is being picked up and what not. But you can also have like a switch in a silent mode where you don't get prompted for that, and it just does that. So with that, it will export all the objects into a file system structure. And so here for schema 1, we then have the functions, jobs, materialized views, packages. And what we like is to have both the package specification and the body in the same directory. When we want to install them, they have to go into separate directories, right? But with doing it this way, you can have a starting point. We also pre-generate the prompt with filter. So for example, Jürgen, in your case, you make a change to the package xlib logs or whatever, and then you can even, with the placeholder, export, and you can have multiple ones, right? So, and this will then just export exactly that what you have chosen, and it will just take out the extra stuff.
Okay, so the first step is get the sources or the objects out of the database, right?
Right, and so it's your choice. You can work with it either by exporting it into the file system, or you say, okay, I will work on this one, and I will load it into SQL Dev, and I will compile it into the database against the database, right? So either you work from the database as the master, or from the file. It's your choice.
Okay,
in
let
the
me explain
end,
that.
You have it in the file system.
So let me explain that. So the regular thing, what I did for 20 years now, I go into SQL Developer, go into package, change the package, compile, and go back to sleep. Right? This is what I did for 20 years. And now people forcing me to say, well, you should have something like Git or some source control, right? So at the end, I need to get this thing out on a file system. And what you are showing is you say, well, you have these two approaches. You can say, okay, you work like you did before. And then after you changed your package, you simply extract it to the file system to put it in some source control system, or the other way around. What Martin loves to do is, I said, well, I'm not working directly on a database, right? I'm working on a file system, so this would be the first step to get all the sources out, and he is directly editing the changes in the file system and then compile it afterwards. So this is what it supports, both approaches.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and what I've learned is that basically we do it the other way around compared to other people. I've seen other people. So when you have a new Jira ticket or a new release version, right? You start working on that. They will work, and in the end, they will create a deployment script, right? So this is what people often do.
Yes.
We do it the other way around. We say, okay, we will start with a new patch, and that will copy the patch template, which is basically a regular directory with subdirectories, and we use that as a template for all of our patches, right? So, and then
I'm not there yet, right? I'm maybe I get it. I'm not getting it yet.
Okay. So, as part of the tool, we will have.
So you get a change request. You have to fix a bug, or you get a change request, and
right.
So what is your step with your tool?
Right. So then we basically said initialize patch, and this is based on a patch template. So these files we will use for each patch that we create, right? As a
so
starting
when you say,
point.
Well, when you say a patch template, you create a new. You say, okay, I'm creating another directory for this patch,
right?
And okay, and this is what I understood.
So you don't have to, basically you don't have to create all the files by yourself. You will copy a directory, which is the basis for each patch, and then you just modify what is different in that patch, right?
So you have a subdirectory right now, and you put the sources, the change sources in the subdirectory. This is what I guess.
Yes. You will see how that works. So we have a directory patch template, and you can modify everything in there to your liking. And when we say initialize patch, it will create, and this is specific in our approach, that it says the patch directory is then the year and then the current date and then the patch name that you just got prompted for, right? And it will just copy the template directory into that directory structure. That's it. It's not doing much, but we like it that we have the structure of patches by year, and then like that. Sometimes we have like for the spots application version 1.2.0, whatever, right?
So you can configure that, right? The directory, how it, but sure. I get the principle. You say, okay, I have a new patch, and it creates me the directory structure for this new patch. This is where I am right now.
Right.
Okay, I'm fine with that. So what's happening next?
Okay, so in there, when you make a change, then you can say, for example, I want to create a table or modify a table, right? And I think that, and it doesn't really matter what you name these directories, but let's say I want to modify a table named dummy, right? Then I something like and you can use SQL dev and have the DDL statement generated for you, right?
Yeah, exactly. This is what I would do. I would go to SQL developer, make the changes, and then create. Before I set apply, I simply steal the generate SQL out of it, and I'm done. Yeah.
Right. So it doesn't really matter how you do that, but in the end, you need that file.
Right.
Right. So we have that, and let's assume I made a change to a package, and the package name, let's say, is xlib log, right? So I want to use that in my patch to deploy it. So I can just reference it here. And when I look at the package headers, I want to copy that file.
Wait a minute, I'm completely lost.
Hold on.
I'm completely lost now. Now, I'm fine with you create a new column, fine. You put the file in this directory, fine.
Right.
Next thing is I'm changing a package. And I go back to the source, which I already exported before in a different directory.
Well, I was just looking up the correct name. Right?
Okay.
So the idea is that you have your source tree, and in there you modify the files. And then you have different patches to deploy a certain version of that file. Right?
Get it.
And we want to have a structured approach to copy the files from the source tree to the patch. Right.
So what you're doing right now is in the source file copy conf is you basically add the package you want to change later. Is this true? Is this right?
Yeah, hold on. So now I save that, and when I call copy source files, it would actually pick up that file and go through the mappings, but here it will not do anything until it reaches packages, and there it finds a directive, and then it will copy the file. And it will be copied to schema 1 packages. So here,
wait a minute.
That is part of the patch.
Wait a minute. So the first thing we did, we exported everything from schema 1 into our like you call this source tree, right? This is what you call source tree. Okay, we have the source tree. Everything on schema 1 is on one place. Now you create your patch directory structure, and now you copying. Now you write everything in this conf file, where you say everything I need for this patch need to be copied from the source tree into my patch directory. Is this true?
Exactly.
See?
And excellent.
That's
and the nice thing about it is we have this structure, right? So basically that copy goes from the source tree to the target SQL directory in the patch tree. And then it will see, okay, schema 1 packages from that directory. It copies to schema 1 090 packages. And here we only want to copy the package specification.
Yes, I get it.
And here the same source directory, but a different target directory, right? And so the nice thing is, once it copies the first file, it will also create the directory. So we don't have any empty directories, but only the ones that we actually use. But when we use them, they're always in the correct naming, right? So everything is being installed in the right order. And so here we have the specification now, and here we have the body. Right? You could even do something like copy all the views. You can even list here multiple files, right? It will pick up anything. So if I want to have all the views,
just put star in it, and then I get it.
So
I get it. Okay, next step.
Right? Copy source files, and it's
I'm with you. I'm with you.
Okay, good. So let me just kick them out. Right. So that's really convenient to use. In that way, you just configure the things. Okay. So now you have basically created your patch, and you're good to go. Right. We have that install a JSON file. And then you have some information about the patch itself, the application. You can give it the patch name, or it picks up the parent folder name that is spots 1, 2, 3. Then I don't even have to do that. And it uses, I don't have, okay. So, and you can set the version.
Tell me why I need to edit this JSON file now. What is the next step? What do you want to achieve now?
Well,
so you want to write it back into the database, or
yes?
What is your goal, or would you? Is this something you want to say? Oh, now I put it on a source control, or what is the next step?
You're right. So we will create tables that will log the patch in the database, and there we will insert that information, right?
So this is a logging thing, that you basically have a repository. That's a table in the schema where you say, there I see what patches I have deployed. Is this
exactly
what it is? Now we're talking.
Right. So let me just run it, and then it'll get clearer. So we have copied the source files, and now we just want to install it, right? And we use color coding for the different environments. The test or integration environment is yellow, and the production is then red, so that we directly see what's going on. And here you can see I'm installing for the application sample 1. That's the name of the patch. That is being picked up from my Windows environment, which I can modify. And you see the config file that it picks up. where the SQL sources are, and it's currently using the connection pool file to our test environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so then, oh.
Okay. So this is the step where you write back to the changes to your database, to your either in development, test to the production. Is this true? Don't ignore this error. Don't try to solve this error. This is not important. So I believe that this is working somehow, right? But just focus on the main steps. So what you say, now I have the changes, and now I can write them back with different scripts to different environments, right?
I mixed the versions and I modified the namings here. This is not.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. This is detail. This is detail. Okay. So what I get is you changed your source code, and now you can decide where you want to deploy it, on which target system, development, test, or production, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Fine. Get it. Anything else?
Yes. No, that is stupid. Let's do something else. So I did mess up. I had too many samples with different versions of the tool. So I changed some attributes in the Opal installer JSON file, which is now crashing. So we'll do the following. I wanted to show the setup routine. So what would somebody actually do when they download it, right? Mm-hmm. So we will, exactly. we will go there, right?
Okay. Yeah.
So let's say we've downloaded it, and
in any directory.
Yes, mm-hmm. wherever we want. Mm-hmm. And then you have those files, right?
And you unzip the file, and then you get the structure.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. So then we can say setup, mm-hmm. and just run the routine. And then you start with the project base directory, right? And that will be automatically created. Projects.
Mm-hmm. So where the source tree, what you call it, the source tree should end
right, mm-hmm. Right. And that could be some place where you have your Git export, right? Mm-hmm. And so then as part of your project tree, we will have somewhere a subdirectory for the Opal tools where the binaries will be located, configuration files and whatnot, right? Mm-hmm. So once you go past this step, this directory will be available as an environment variable that you can leverage, right? So mm-hmm. that is then the subdirectory. And the patch template will also be directly under your project root. Then we will have a local configuration directory in which we will store the individual connection pools with connection information for the different schemas that you're using, mm-hmm. and encrypted passwords and whatnot. Mm-hmm. That is typically not part of your Git environment, because you don't want to have that in Git, the passwords and all that stuff, right? Mm-hmm. So that is a local configuration, and you can store it there. We will use the default here, and then
okay. When you don't put anything in, it means it takes a default.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
good to know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Fine.
And I will also accept that as the default mm-hmm. here. That is actually the script to set up the environment, which we'll see in a bit. And this is called from each of the generated batch files to make sure the environment is properly set up. Then we define where the location of our SQL files is, right? And so as we said before, you can fully customize it, and we will also have it under the project root in this case. The patches will also be underneath the root. And here we can have a list of the database schemas that we want to work with, right? So we will work with schema 1 and schema 2. You can have blank separated lists as many as you like. And we want to work with the environments, development, test, and production. Right? So we also...
If I just have development and production, I just write dev blank prod, right? True?
Yeah, you would like...
Or would I say dev prod? Okay, yeah, okay, something like that.
Yeah.
Good.
Right. And we also use the color coding, these green, yellow, and red. That is built in. We understand what that is, but we're using basically the commands of the DOS shell scripting and the bash shell scripting, right? Okay, we use those, and our development environment is dev. This is used for the export that we connect to the right environment. Right? And we take specific care of having the right encoding. So if you work on Windows, and this will be picked up automatically from the system environment, so with German umlauts and special characters, you can quickly have issues. And so we set that parameters, and we make sure that the exports are also in the right format. So you can configure that in SQL Developer or Toad or in your default text editor, which encoding should be used. So if you don't have special requirements, you are good to just confirm that. But for example, when you say, well, we work with developers on Mac, Linux, and Windows together, then you should switch and use UTF-8 as the default so that all can play together nicely. But the Windows guy will have to change the settings that the files that get created really are UTF-8. Okay, so
but you shouldn't use special characters in programming anyway. Don't use umlauts in programming. Always English, no umlauts, no special characters. Be a good citizen.
Well, if you have an error message in German, in a pure SQL package, you cannot escape it.
True.
You don't always output HTML. So there sometimes reality is just requires.
Yeah,
that.
I didn't think about the actual data, but you know the source coding. I don't want to see umlauts.
Yeah, I mean, even if you have like insert scripts, right, and you have their special characters, you need them at some point, and then you just have to be aware of that. So we ran into so many issues, and we've streamlined the process that all our editors will produce the right encoding, and also the exporting routines will make sure it all works, and then you can properly use it. So the next step in the setup is basically iterating through the different environments and connections so that you can enter the connect information. So here you can see that is the development environment, and it will write that connection pool file. And that is the local host for me. And then with which user do we want to connect? And that is schema 1. Why you're being prompted here is because you could also say, if you have like proxy accounts or something, then you could connect like that, right? So
I learned that yesterday,
I love that, right?
I hate it, but Dan always provided me with this thing and said, "Oh no, I don't understand it, but I don't care as long as it works. I'm fine with it." But yesterday I understood it because I'm setting up a cloud environment, and they talked about proxy thing, and then said, "Yeah, you can basically connect with a different user, and even if you connect with user one, you can." In real life, you connect with user two, something like that.
So it has a very practical application. So for example, we are both developing in Schema 1, right? 10 developers.
Yes.
Typically, you would have to give everybody the password.
Yes.
Right? So, but when one leaves the company, you would have to change the password and redistribute again. So, but using this approach, nobody has the password to Schema 1. Everybody has their own user, Jürgen, Dietmar, and we are being granted the privilege to basically impersonate Schema 1. It's the same technically as if we would connect Schema 1 directly, but by doing it this way, it can be audited and the privilege can be revoked. And so, but it's still different than if you have lots of grants, right? So sometimes people did it for third level support through roles, but that was always cumbersome and had technical issues, right?
And this is what you have to do with when you set up the SQL developer for your free cloud access. This is what I learned, right? So therefore I understood it for the very first time. I mean, I used it for much longer, but now I understand it. So this is why I'm happy. This is why I'm happy beautiful. Now.
I like that. So that's the reason why we prompt for the schema name. So typically you can just hit enter and it will work fine.
Yeah.
So I put in password schema 2. Then it prompts me for the test environment. Schema 2. So, and that was prod. So what we got now here is the first directory is the local configuration directory for the different connection pools. And the system is development. That is schema 1 with an encrypted password. You could also like reset it if you want to change it. When it sees that, then it knows it's the first encryption method that we're using. So we can later on have other ones as well. But you can also modify it in clear text. Whenever we use it for the first time, it'll be automatically encrypted.
Okay.
So those are then the connection pools for the prod environment and test.
Yeah. Okay.
And this will basically set up the environment, right? So the project root is demo 2. The user identity is Dietmar. That is being recorded then when we log the patches. And here you can see where the config directory is located. And you typically don't have to change much, but you can use all those directories if you want to change scripts or have your own scripts, whatever, you can use all those directories. So it's easier to change also locations of directories. So that is
if you're basically using which you like to use with your own structure, basically, and say, okay, I'm adapting your tool on my own file directory structure, right?
Yeah. Actually, I would do it during the setup routine. That I would. I think I have.
Yeah, but I get that. Right. Next step.
Okay.
Next step.
Okay. So Opal tools is a directory with all the different binaries. and the configuration files.
So
here,
this is your thing. I'm not touching this.
Yes and no, but that's also in the documentation. You have, there are some batch files that will just basically call the Java routine and pass the parameters to it, right? So that is a very simple wrapper. Those files, or let's say this one, that is specific to your configuration. Export the schema 1 and the filter, and that was being generated because I said I need schema 1 and schema 2. If I would have said HR and Scott, it would generate different batch files, right?
Get it? Yeah, sure.
Right.
But in general, I'm not supposed to make changes in there. This is not what I do on a regular basis, right? Opal Tools is your directory, and only if you are an expert, you going in there and do fun stuff.
Well, actually, I would recommend to use those scripts and put them where you need them. So, for example, we have an implementation directory, and we would move them there, right? So then you have. If you want to export the sources, then you can quickly navigate to the sources, but you don't have to, right? So why that works is basically, and that is generated into each of the batch files, that it will first call the setup of the user environment, and then it will find everything it needs to find, so you can move it around. Right?
Okay, this is my information I need. You can move it around.
Yes.
Good.
And yeah, this is also nice. You can validate all the different connection pools in one with one check. It will make sure that it connects to them. And here, since we changed the password, it will actually encrypt it, right? So yeah, and then and you can modify that, as I said. For example, for the initialize patch, we say the patch directory is then the year and the date string. If you want to have it differently, right? And then we say, okay, after that we will start the Explorer. That is all stuff that we found helpful, but you can modify all that. Right.
Okay.
So, and then you have also the patch template, and we have all the batch files there, and you would modify it as much as you like. So, for example, typically you would throw out the validate def doesn't make sense, and the install def is typically not needed either. And then you would modify, let's say, the installer JSON file. So we have, let's say, the demo application is the name of the application itself. And so whenever we create a patch, it will copy that file. And so demo application is already in there. You don't have to enter it each time, right? And what it does here is you have mappings. So all files that are located in the subdirectory schema 1 will be executed with the connection pool schema 1.
Yeah, okay.
And for schema 2 with the connection pool schema 2. And we will only pick up files that end on .sql, .pks, pkb trigger. If you have, let's say, for example, also files that are called
I get that.
view, some people do it this way, whatever, then you can modify it here, right?
Yeah, okay.
What we should do is the registry targets is we can define in which we can define where we want to put the logging table, right? So we say it will be stored in the connection pool schema 1. And I can set the table prefix. So you might want to have Siemens or whatever as a table prefix, and then it'll create it there, right?
Okay.
We also can determine how we want to, so which encoding should be used for which files. So here we need to make sure that all the Apex files is always run with UTF-8 encoding, because typically you export that as UTF-8, even on Windows. And all the other ones will be run like that. So if you have the need to be more specific about the encoding, you can configure that here. But typically that's not required. Okay, so what we also like to have in the patch template is basically a pre-install script that will set define on, timing on, page size, escrow blank lines, and roll all if you're using Apex Administrator, whatever, to set instance settings. And you can put in there whatever you like, right? And so whatever we feel we want to have in all of the patches, we just dump it in here, right? And so when we run data, let's say you have a number of inserts, first you need to make sure that all packages are valid, right? And so we run a compile schema. So there is some stuff in there that we just put there, but you can fully customize it to your liking.
So inside, let's say in packages, when I'm in the packages directory or table directory or whatever, and I want to have a certain sequence where I want to install each package or each table, what do I also have a prefix, a number prefix for that, or how do you set the order of the installing inside a source directory?
Yes, you could either use 001 underscore and then the name of the package and then 002, or you can use subdirectories similar to what Linux does, run level 1, run level 2, run level 3, and put everything in there. So you are free how to do that. Typically there is very rarely the need to do that, because we already have, let's say, the package specifications before we run the bodies. But if you want to influence the order, just change it the way that it looks nice in the file system, and then it'll pick it up that way. So, oh, that was a demo. Okay, so let's say we say once again. We'll do this. It will copy the patch template. And then we can, let's put the stuff in here that we had before. So if we don't need schema 2, we just delete it, right? And we did have, let me just copy it over from here. Sample 1, already have it there.
What are you trying to achieve now?
I'm just looking for that file. Okay. So that was. So I want to continue where I had the issue initially with creating the patch.
You wanna prove
that it should work. Okay.
Well, and, I knew that I knew you couldn't let it be. I knew it.
Yeah, I mean, there is some important things. So I don't copy the patches, the packages, but let's say we also have a validate, right? Okay, so this is also nice. You can make sure that your patches have a certain quality. If you want then you can say, okay, this is a mandatory setting in the Opal JSON, right? You have the version that must be set. And that is different for each patch, possibly, right? And that is also something that you can configure in the patch template. So there you have
wait a minute. So you say you are looking for, you say every file has to be somewhere the comment version 1. Is this what you are trying to achieve right now? It just where you say, okay, all my patch files need to have somewhere in a comment version 1. Is this what you?
Right. Yeah.
All right. See?
Yeah.
Okay.
And in the batch file, you can say which are mandatory attributes. And I could also have said, okay, I just remove that as a mandatory attribute if version is not important for me, right? But if it is important, then I need to put it in here. Yeah, thanks for asking. So now when I run the validate patch, you can see the version is here and everything, and now it will just list the files without connecting against the database, and I can see first it'll run the pre-install patch, and then the tables dummy, and then the recompile, and that looks good. And when I hit enter, it will actually connect to the database using the connection pool. So I can see, okay, the connection pool is set up, and when I want to install later tonight, everything will work. I'm fine, right?
So you said later tonight, you can also, make
you can just validate it.
I mean, the whole thing doesn't have to be done manually. You can also say, oh, I let it done in the night.
Well, no, I didn't mean that, but you can certainly build a batch, a cron job on Windows that does that, whatever, right? And then you would actually install it. So, but we typically do it ourselves manually. And so when we install it, first you can see once again the scripts it will run, and then it will actually execute them. And if the table don't exist, but we say we want to have the logging tables, they will be created, right? And then you can see, okay, then the first script is the pre-patch, it's run, and that script caused an error, and then the recompile that went through, okay? And log files are generated automatically that you can see I installed on test.
Okay, you also have a log file on file system.
Yes, so that has exactly the same content as you could just see. So that's recorded automatically. And then we can check schema 1. I think it's so here you can see that the patch was applied. That's the patch name. The version, I did it. The target system was test. When did the patch start and end? And we can see the different config files and connection pool. We even, if you have a file named release notes txt, it will be uploaded directly in here. That's just the contents of that file. That right? If you have like I don't know, Jira, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So and that will automatically be loaded and inserted into that column, which is kind of nice. Also, you can see with the details, which files were run in which order.
Okay, you have two files. You have two repository tables: the install pages and the details.
Right. So that is nice.
All right. Now the circle is closed for me.
Yeah.
Anything missing?
No.
All right.
So one more thing. It's also so when I was talking to Jorge, he said, well, we don't want to copy the files into that directory because we're using Git and we work on a specific tag and we just want to execute the files. And for that purpose, you know, we entered that into the source files copy, right? But we can also say we use source files reference. It has the same structure. And for example, I want to use.
So the thing is, when you say I'm using Git to check out my sources from Git, and then I already have a source tree created from Git, right? This is what you're talking about.
You go to a specific tag and then you just install that, right?
Don't answer my question. So I don't know if this is a thing, but it was with SVN. We worked with SVN, and then you check out your sources, and then SVN or Git, I think it's the same thing. It is creating a directory structure by itself.
Yeah.
Right. And what you are saying, instead of me creating my own directory structure, I let Git or SVN create their own directory structure, and I take it from here.
No, I meant something different.
All right,
it's not, and it goes the same for Git or SVN, but typically you do it more often when you're using Git. So then you would actually check out a very specific tag, and you would run the scripts that are on that version. When you work with SVN, you typically have a copy of the files so that it doesn't get mixed up that easily. It's just a different approach. Right?
Yeah. Okay. Let's assume I have SVN, which I had, and so I'm checking out source code from SVN on my local file system, and I already and SVN is creating the file structure the way it does, to right.
Yeah.
And then I can say, okay, instead of creating your source tree with Opal tools.
Okay, now I get you. No, the point is a different one. The point is in Git or SVN, you have the same structure. It's just with the source tree, you have the specific version of the patch you want to install. So the files change over time in your source code repository, right? And you deploy certain versions, which change after time.
Yes.
So when Jorge looks up which file and specific content did we install in that patch Jira ticket 123, he goes into Git and looks at the Git tag, and then the source tree will show the version that was deployed with Jira 123. And it's in the source tree where you find the proper file content.
Who created a source tree?
He did.
In Jorge's case.
He did, either manually or you can generate it with the tool I have. But he has the source tree. So whatever, the basic idea is you have two different approaches. One is if you want to have a copy of your package specification in the patch, you can copy the source files.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want that for whatever reason, you can just reference the source files. So this I did here. When I validate, I can now see
But then
what files it will run.
Wait a minute. So regularly we have this source file tree thing, what you created. And then you copy the files from there in your patch directory.
Right.
True? Okay. And then you change everything there but you also can say, no, I also can edit everything in the source tree.
Right.
And then take it from here and deploy it from the source tree for whatever reason. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Now I'm back. Okay. Good. So can I wrap it up? What I understood so far? Okay.
Yeah.
So what I understood is this is what you did is automate as much as you can what you did manually for the last 20 years. And with your experience, you said, okay, this is what I did in 100 projects, and it's always the same pain in the ass, and everybody has to do it, and I don't want to do it anymore and manually, and let it other people do manually in a little different way. So I try to automate that, and it's not, and it's also not replacing any Git or source control.
No, it plays nicely with that, right?
Yeah. So you just say, get the data out from the database, and then you change and then you create your patch directories. You make the changes in the patch, and you deploy it back in your database in dev, test, and production. That's the circle.
Right.
All right.
Yeah. And there are so many convenient things with that, right? You don't have to fiddle with the username password and do I connect to the right environment. You understand that it's development, test, production. You have color coding. You don't make mistakes there, and it's just it just nicely supports your flow. You make a change in the database, you just double click and it's exported. It's in the right spot, and you just register it in the file, and you're good.
And when you want to, one missing link for me, when you want to put it back into your source control system. Oh, let's say I work from files, which I still not
you just commit.
But I mean, and you commit from the patch, directory.
You commit from your source tree.
So how do the changes?
Hold on. Sorry. We have two aspects there. One is, and that is first, you modify packages and views, right? That is done in the source tree, right?
Oh, you modify your package in the source tree?
Yeah.
Not in the patch.
No. So when you think about it, you have, let's say, you have packages, views, triggers, and other things that can be replaced one-to-one. You just copy the file, the view definition, and it'll replace the object. You cannot do that with tables, right? So when you have a table, you have, let's say, a definition in your source tree, but for a patch, you need to write a specific command from go to version 1 to version 2.
Version 2, yeah.
And that is specific to the patch. Right? So we, right from the beginning, if that is specific to the patch, we put it in the patch, right? Else you would have to put it someplace else, and you need a naming convention or whatever to understand that this belongs here.
Okay.
So since we we say, okay, we create a new change, we initialize the patch, so we have all the locations that we need. And when we do a change to a table, we put it right there. When we do a change to a package, that is done in the source tree. We just register that in the conf file, which packages we changed. And with a double click at the end before deploying the patch, we will copy that version into the patch. And then actually you will commit both the source tree and your patch tree.
What? Oh, you mean, no, hold on. You say I changed the package in the source tree.
Yeah.
And then you also copied the changed package from the source tree in your patch directory. And from there, you put it in the database.
No, yeah, then you deploy the patches.
Yeah, you deploy the patches. So in the patch, there are also the change packages, but the change packages in the patches are identical with the changes in the source tree.
Yes.
And the source tree is what you commit back to your
SVN,
Git.
right?
Or SVN.
Git SVN, yeah.
No, see, wasn't that hard?
No, it's
amazing that I still understand you. I cannot believe that I'm still friends with you, right? You're such a nerd. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah. Such an IT guy. I mean, most of the time we're not talking about IT stuff, right? We're talking about life stuff and anything else. But when you and I forget that you are such a nerd, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I have just come to terms with weird, and that's such a relief, right? I just accept that. I love it.
Yeah, but I'm really proud of me that I understood the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
It was hard. It was hard, but now I get it. It just
I
just can stretch myself as much that I can touch your feet, and so now I have the connection.
Yeah, and it's really just getting the understanding the different links, how things play together. But now it becomes so easy for all the developers in our different teams. If you want to make a permanent change to the patching process, you go to the patch template. We even have like Word files as checklists in there that people go through the checklist, whether they have done everything. And you could even then modify the batch files to whatever, do a minify on JavaScript or whatever. You can add stuff as much as you like. But when we change it, all patches look the same.
Are you still working on it? Is this something, is it beta, or is it say, no, this is production, this is what I'm working now. This is a stable version, or?
Well, it's a stable version. We're using it in, 8 different projects, and it works fine.
Are you working on it on GitHub? If somebody says, well, we would like to have this and that, are you implementing change requests there?
Oh yeah, definitely.
You do. Okay, so it's an active project.
Yeah,
it's not like Martin's logger. Which didn't do anything for the last 5 years, but he's telling me for 5 years, oh, I'm going to do this in the next version. 5 years later.
No, actually, I did pick up the development of the Jasper reports integration, but half a year ago. I changed so I moved completely to GitHub with.
I never understand why you did this. I never understand why you invest time in that. I mean, I understand it because 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I don't know how long this is out. For my feeling, it's 10 years. But now
it's 12 years.
That's easy. and then I understood it in the beginning, but now that we have so much printing solutions, professional and nice like AOP, and then also the internal printing solutions now, exporting solutions, I don't know why you put time into that anymore.
Well, I mean, I have also learned that there is a market, and you have different requirements, flavors,
But is it a product?
whatever.
Do you earn money?
No. So, but there's still. I mean, I help the community. I
Come on.
don't really use it actively in my projects anymore because often there are like different solutions available for that. But when you look at the space, even for Apex, AOP is for cost. Many people don't want that. Also, many people have hundreds of people have integrated the Jasper Reports integration. So I help them out to further support it. And also the solution from the Apex team is not up to par. If you really want high fidelity, pixel perfect design,
then do AOP.
Something else.
Because everything else costs you at least as much money as a license, regular license from AOP. Period.
Well, not the Jasper Reports integration, and you can do everything that you can also do with.
But it's cumbersome. I saw it the first time 10 years ago when you showed it to me, and it's not AOP, and it never will be. And
it's a different approach.
Set up a complicated environment. For me, complicated. For you, it's easy,
it's a double click.
But for me, it's complicated. And so instead of investing my time and money into, making a free solution work, I rather pay the money and make it easy with AOP.
Okay. So following your argument, right? Then we would only need one type of car and one color of car.
Yeah. I mean, if you have, wait a minute, if you have a perfect car that can adapt to all of your needs, why would you need anything else? And would you also change colors?
You need different cars because different people have different needs.
Yeah, but it makes sense if you say, this is what I'm in a discussion with my daughter right now. She wants to buy a car, her first car. And she said, well, I buy a very cheap used one. And I said, wait a minute. Buying a car for 5,000 euros means total cost of ownership 20K in 5 years, right? If you even make it 5 years, because you have to invest, you have to invest a lot of money in repairing, maintenance, right? And you can also buy a brand new car with a great deduction, and then sell it after 5 years for, I don't know, 7,000 euros, and then you calculate the total cost of ownership. You will see it's cheaper. It's cheaper to use that, and so therefore. Well, I don't get why anybody is dealing with anything else in printing, because I'm using AOP from day one, and it was the kind of a development we always have the edge cases. Now I have a server with 64 gigabytes. I'm the guy, the official guy, who are using the largest AOP server on the planet, because my people want to export 500,000 records into Excel. What? Yeah, they do. And I said, well, this is what we can, right? And if you want to have that, so we have enough memory. Okay, let's. And then what I learned, the people are accepting your web application when they can export everything into Excel. Then they accept your dealing with your web application.
Yeah,
so
that's true.
I gave up this. Yeah, was great talking to you.
Yeah,
It was a hard ride for me, a bumpy ride for me to understand everything. But
but that's good that you asked those questions. For me, everything is like
that's the problem.
Totally clear, and
that's always
good.
the problem with you guys, with you nerds, right? It's always clear, and and template directory, blah blah blah, connection pooling, blah blah blah. I mean, I listened to this to the Apex service announcement from Andy. Did you see that video?
Not sure. I think not.
You should have listened to that. And I said, really? He's using buzzwords. 90% is just buzzwords. And it's like, yeah, I told this for the last 20 years. And that nobody's understanding you. Are you aware of that? Right? It's ridiculous. But yeah, this is where I come into play and to translate everything to real people.
Awesome.
Yeah, great to having you. And yeah, I will publish it. And happy that this is an ongoing project. I will check my deployment process at Siemens. We have a similar approach. I mean, we do everything by hand by now. Yeah. This is what we do, right? And it looks promising. Maybe we will talk again when I set it up.
Definitely.
Is there documentation somewhere?
Oh yeah, a lot. Oh yeah. Hold on. I think one thing I would definitely want to show. It's so on the GitHub page, you see the documentation, and we have sort of a quick start, download and setup, how to initialize. So that's a brief overview. But what's really important and which might be overlooked is advanced customization. So when you go to that page, you have lots of information about what you have to take care of with the shell scripting and file encodings and whatever. And if you want to register the database log tables, how you can do that. You have lots of information. Also with some people, connection pool files, right? So
all the nerdy stuff is in there.
Yes, you can connect by different means. You can even do a cloud connect. So everything is explained here as well, right?
Amazing.
So that's really helpful. So the first page is just giving you a brief overview and making everything really simple and easy to understand.
You should put a link to this video in your GitHub.
Yeah, once you've published it, I will add it here. So there is one demo video that I recorded, and then we will also add this one that we're just
for doing. People who really wants to understand what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't go too much into the whole configuration side so much, but
yeah, was deep enough. Yeah. Thanks a lot, Dietmar.
Yeah. Thank you.
How much time did you put into this project?
Well, difficult to say. I think actual programming time
and documentation and everything.
Yeah, so it was, let's say, over 6 months it was created. But I think the actual effort going in there 3 weeks or something.
Really? Only
like
3 weeks?
Each day. Yeah.
Yeah, but it looks much more than 3 weeks. But okay.
Well, it was like, I mean, it took me like 15 years to understand the process. Right?
Okay.
And then we built out the first prototype, used it at the German Telecom, and then also we set it up for the next project. Then we noticed, it's a little bit cumbersome to do the different tools. Then I built in more stuff. I had the setup routine, and now it's like you run setup, it's being pushed into the right directories. The batch files are generated, picking up the environment script. And so that is now really easy to do, but that took time to develop. Yeah.
So
to first understand that you would need that. Then building it is a different thing. But when you said, now we are using it for several months, that would be nice if we could do this or that. So it was not that I had all the requirements and built it. It was by actually using it in different projects that we understood where we needed more flexibility and whatnot.
What is standing on your wall? I only see half of it. This black thing. Do
This
more of what makes you happy. Okay, okay, yeah, thank you. This was bothering me. I tried to figure it out. This is what I was really focusing on the last hour. What could this mean? Oh my goodness.
Funny.
Thanks, Dietmar. It was nice
Awesome.
talking to you.
Yeah,
Bye.
it was nice as always. Bye, Jürgen.